for the town of Brunswick and zoning board of appeals. Everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, tonight is a special joint public hearing with the planning board and the ZBA. So this is our normal night for our business meeting for the planning board. We also have a second public hearing strictly for the planning board after this. But what we're going to do is we're going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I will open the public hearing on behalf of the, wait a second. Let me backtrack just a little bit, just so everybody knows where we are. This is a first two items on our agenda of public hearings. The first one is the Atlas Renewables. This is a special use permit site plan. Applicant seeks to construct a commercial solar collector facility on property located off Oakwood Avenue and Farrell Road. This is a joint public hearing with the zoning board of appeals to commence at 7 p.m. Atlas Renewables is the LLC. The second public hearing is for the benefit of people here is the Whitbeck minor subdivision. This is the applicant seeks minor subdivision approval to create 4 new lots containing 4.02 acres, 3.20 acres, 6.77 acres, and 31.69 acres on property located at 131 Creeper Lane. And that public hearing, ideally, would like to commence at 7:15. I don't know if that's going to happen. Richard Whitbeck and Jacqueline Whitbeck are the applicants. When I get back to our regular meeting, I'll read the rest of the agenda in full, but they include the Leon site plan amendment, Silas major subdivision, Patton Waywood subdivision. There's going to be discussion on the new, and Brunswick Acres, PDD. After which we're going to do some discussion on the zoning law amendments. So that's the outline of what tonight's activities are. So to start off, I will call to order the planning board and open up the public hearing on behalf of the planning board. And now turn the floor over to Ann Clemente, the ZBA will open up their meeting.
Thank you, Russ. The zoning board of appeals opens the public hearing of the zoning board of appeals on the application for area variance submitted by Atlas Renewables LLC for above ground utility poles.
Thank you. Okay, procedurally, the purpose of the public hearing is to hear concerns, comments, and views from the general public regarding a particular proposal or application. All public hearings are electronically recorded and the written record of the proceedings is generated. The applicant will be required to respond to all concerns and comments made at the public hearing, and subsequently the planning board and the zoning board of appeals will consider all concerns and comments when evaluating the application to ensure that the applicant has addressed all the issues in question. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. Notice of public hearing will be read by the planning board and ZBA attorney. Next, the applicant will give a brief presentation on the proposal and provide any updates on the application. Upon completion of the applicant's remarks, persons from the public will be recognized, and these individuals will have an opportunity to speak and offer their concerns, comments, and views. Since the proceedings of the public hearing are electronically recorded, it is requested that all speakers step forward and use the microphone at the podium, and all speakers give their name and address for the record. Now turn the floor over to Attorney Gilchrist to read the notice of public hearing.
Notice of joint public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing will be held by the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Brunswick at 7 p.m. on Thursday, July 7th, 2022, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, to review the special use permit and site plan applications submitted to the Planning Board and the area variance application submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals by Atlas Renewables LLC to construct a commercial solar collector facility on property located off Oakwood Avenue and Farrell Road. The application materials are on file at the Town of Brunswick offices located at 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, and are available for inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing. This was published in the Eastwood Press, the official newspaper for the town, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to owners of property located within 300 feet of the project site.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, will the applicant give a presentation to the audience, please?
Good evening, Mr. Oster. Good evening, Ms. Donen. Thank you for your time. Atlas Renewables is proposing the construction of a 5 megawatt community solar project. It is 5 megawatt community
Can
solar.
everybody hear you?
Can't understand.
Okay.
I think you're on.
There you are.
Hello.
You just gotta speak louder.
I will. Good evening again. Thank you for this opportunity of the joint planning board and zoning board meeting. Atlas Renewables, my company, is proposing the construction of a 5 megawatt community solar project. This community solar project will be located in the Oakwood Avenue in one portion of the parcel 80 -2 -3 11. In one portion of these 79 acres. We'll be using only 15 acres approximately. In order to access to the, so this is parcel 80 -2 -3 11. This parcel, the boundary is marked in this white color. This is Liberty Road. This is Bell Lane, this is Oakwood Avenue, this is Farrell Road, this is Brunswick Meadows. In order to access to this solar farm, we will be using Farrell Road and the existing road which is accessing to this. This is the House of Horrors and this is the paintball. So we'll be using the existing road and prolonging this road to access to the solar farm. And we'll be connecting to the National Grid distribution line using these white interconnection lines. This portion will be underground and this portion will be overhead. We'll be crossing and we have already got the approval from NYSEG to cross this formal municipality. That's why we are proposing here this portion to be overhead. We'll be installing one overhead pole here, one in the middle, and one in this portion, and then we'll be connecting to the National Grid 13.2 kilowatts. We are very open to hear your comments and to hear your thoughts. We have been producing some screening examples from different options. We consider that this project is well screened. If necessary, we'll be more than happy to provide you these simulations. That's by now my presentation, and I would like to address.
Thank you. Then I will officially open up the floor. Anyone who wishes to come up and make any comments?
Hello, my name is Nancy Williams. I live at 58 Biscayne Boulevard in Miami Beach. And I'd like to know where the Niagara Mohawk Code and connections are going to be located. It looks like it's going to be located very close to our house. So can you please explain that, please?
So, this is Diamond Rock Plaza right here. And then there's existing power lines running along Oakwood Ave. We're connecting to one of the power lines. And then we're going back into the former waste site, the former cement site.
Okay, so yeah, that's, sounds like it's right behind my house.
We can show you some pictures, some simulations. It exists. Imagine a Niagara Mohawk transmission line. Then there are some trees, and then we are planning to install these 6 poles, 3 or 6 poles to connect to the grid. Give me 1 second, I will try to show you some representation. This is a photo montage. We'll show you later some simulation. This is a photo montage. It will be existing.
Can you enlarge that at all?
Not really, it's the projector issue, it's our portable projector.
So, do you have some questions? What is your question?
Do you think I can flip some of the lights off in the back, maybe that would help? Thank you.
We'll try to show you what it is and what will be from these 5 different points. So, this is how it looks like today.
Yes.
This is how it will look like in the future. And I will repeat it again. So this is today, and these additional poles, this is what we are proposing. From a different angle, this is how it looks like today, and this is how it will look like in the future, this 6 points. Again, this is how it looks today, and this is a phone contact corresponding to this point. So I assume that your house is
Right behind,
behind
in front of it, actually.
From High Point, are you in High Point?
No, I'm not inside. I'm in Miami Beach. This thing's over. I show you where my house is.
Behind,
My house is.
your house is here.
here's
Is that
that.
Miami Beach? This thing Boulevard, yes.
So there's the Niagara Mohawk power lines here.
Yes, we see that.
Yep, and then we would maintain tree buffer, and then we would be going, we would just have a line going basically through the tree line, we will be clearing 3 feet or whatever
Okay.
it is.
So there wouldn't be any need for you to come down off to my property?
No.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come up? Anybody else have any comments?
Good evening, Peter Ryan, 1703 Brunswick Meadows Way. I'm a little taken aback by looking at this diagram here. I mean, I thought I'd come in here and see a professional presentation and show me the lands. Maybe it's to come, but from what I've heard, I don't think so. I mean, this is a solar farm. Where are the panels going to be? You know, who's going to hit visuals? Are there a lot of trees here? Are the trees going to come down? I mean, I thought I'd be coming, maybe get a glossy presentation where we see elevations, we see where they were from different points. I haven't seen that, so.
Do you have that available on your?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We are very open to provide you as much information as we need. We want to make it short and concentrate in short presentation, but we can have as much discussion as we want to wish. This is the better sort of time. So.
Luis, if you could grab the mic just so we can have this recorded, thank you.
Thanks.
Usually, in all these solar farms, we are requested to have a topographical survey. We have produced this topographical survey using RDM surveyor, a local company. With this survey, we have prepared our initial site layout, It is not this one, it was an old version. Then we have run what is called a wetland delineation report. This wetland delineation is identifying wetland areas. Here is remarked in this green color the wetland areas that has been identified. One comment, it doesn't mean a wetland area to be delineated as wetland. It doesn't mean that there is water. It depends on the water, the type of vegetation, and the type of soil that an environmentalist classify this land as a wetland area. Okay. The jurisdiction of the wetland area, it depends on different factors. Can be the state level, DEC, or can be at the federal level, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. These three areas, because of the small size compared to other wetlands in other parts of the New York State, these are classified as federal wetlands, and the request from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is that to leave a minimum 12 to 15 feet from these wetland areas. If we were talking about a state wetland, like portions of here, we'll be talking about the 100 feet setback. I think it's important, this clarification, because why it's possible to install these solar modules so close? Because it's a federal wetland. An additional comment, depending on the type of vegetation, and this is the right type of vegetation, it will be possible to install solar modules on top of these wetland areas. Because our preferences, because we want to respect as much as possible these trees and to provide good shading to the rest of the houses, we will not be installing modules on top of these wetlands. We will respect these areas.
Let's say, I'm gonna sleep better tonight. Really what I'm interested in is, where is it gonna be effective to my project, all the people sitting in this room? How close is it gonna be? What's gonna be the visualization? Is there a noise factor in these? Do they move? Is there gradient heat that they're gonna throw up?
Those are all great questions. Let me, you live in Brunswick Meadows.
Yes.
That's right here. There's a beautiful tree, hedge line, lots of forest here. There is some opening, your property. There's also on our parcel, including this wetland, it's filled with trees. So we have about 400, 500 feet to our fence line, and then about 300 of that is trees. So we do have a simulation. I think that's the most important concern. Noise, all that stuff, we'll show you data, that's not a concern at all.
Have you done other projects around here?
Yes. Do you have to prepare the computer with the simulation maybe? Meanwhile, noise. Can you hear this one? Yes.
Yeah.
If
I'm old,
you,
but I can hear.
yes. If you were 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, we can agree that you will not hear this one from 300 feet. Okay. This is approximately the noise that an inverter during the day will produce. A little bit more depending on the peak of the production, but this will be the noise of an inverter during the day. During the night, there is no sun, there is no production, there is no inverter running. So noise will not be a concern. We have measured the distance from, the inverter will be approximately here. We have measured the distance from this inverter to the houses, and the distances are 600, 700, 1,000 feet. We can provide you, if necessary, the reports from the manufacturer showing which is the noise that you can hear at 100 feet, 500 feet, 700 feet. And you can compare this noise with the noise that you will hear in a library, a noise that you will hear on a forest during the night. So happy to provide these reports. Again, these are not our reports, these are reports produced by the manufacturer, subject to the corresponding,
You mentioned a fence, there's gonna be a fence around it?
There will be a fence. There will be a fence, and what I was talking about the fan. So, but yes, all the perimeter will have a fence to prevent people entering to the site. Of course, we are talking about electricity, so we are talking about some hazards. Yes, everything is
And it's 15 acres you're taking?
1.5 approximately. Yes, 1.5.
1.5?
15.
Out of 80 something.
Out of 79 plus the corridors, so yes.
Any consideration given to the displacement of wildlife up there? Because we don't know. We have a lot of wildlife that's been formerly displaced and it seems to be coming closer and closer. to-
That's right in the wildlife area. Yeah.
Regarding the wildlife, the fencing that we use, we call it fauna friendly fencing. It's wide net steel fencing. It's something you'd see in
I'm not worried
a
about the camp, I'm worried about our homes.
the homes, right?
Displacement of the wildlife.
So deer primarily,
Coyotes, turkeys.
right? So
Bobcats.
okay. A lot of this is already cleared. So and we don't think that it's going to be displacing, like anyone can put a fence around their homes and it's going to redirect game trails and things like that. So let me just, sorry.
Just one additional comment. This portion that we are taking, it's classified as industrial soil. So this is prepared for,
The old bird plant, the old Troy hunt, right?
it's adjacent. So it's not the former municipality, it's the adjacent parcel. And that adjacent parcel is 3 different zoning: residential, PDD, and industrial. We are using the industrial portion of those 79 acres. What I'm trying to explain is that if this parcel is classified as industrial, and it was possible to build industry, any type of industry will be more invasive than this solar farm. Will have much more impact than the solar farm. What John, my business partner, was trying to explain is that we know that deer are very flexible animals. They will jump over a fence even if it's 8 feet. So I'm not so concerned, and we have these experiences in other parts of New York, that wherever we put as a fence, the deer will jump and will cross if they want our properties.
Here's just a quick, you can see a simulation from Brunswick Meadows. And these are simulated homes. We didn't want to invade anyone's privacy. And this is in fall. This would be in leaf-off conditions. And then back to summer.
So what's the point of reference for
This you're staring. We're northwest or due north of the parcel. This is Brunswick Meadows right here, and this is Oakwood Avenue, and this is High Point.
Where's Farrell and Liberty?
Farrell is all the way on the other side, and Liberty is
Can't see it.
here. Liberty Road's right here.
And you're see them right there in the center, that's your solar panels.
Correct. Right here.
You have customers already lined up for this, or do we only find customers?
All right, would you like to come to the podium if we can do all your questions?
Lawrence, 157 Farrell Road. And the question is, your business is to then sell the energy, either that you have customers already or get build this environment.
That's a really great question. What we found is that New York State is oversubscribed with people who want to buy solar. So there's a number of companies, they're called ESCOs. They'll knock on door to door, they'll get people to sign up and buy solar versus conventional power. So that's not an issue. We have a partner that basically has a long queue of customers waiting to subscribe.
So you deal for CAA, because I know of other companies, Skodak, where they built this, where they got ready to build it, and they got customers there, they had their money, they had problems getting it through, and there were issues for 2 years later, people didn't have electricity,
It's exactly nothing. And I'm rest assured that you guys will keep this our life.
100%.
Is that the inverters or where? Because that's the noisy part of it, right? The inverters.
It's about the sound of the fan that you're hearing. The inverter is located in the center. It would be in the center. It's very small. It's about the size of a shipping container, 40 feet by 8 feet by 10 feet.
And where is that location to go for
Uh, Okay, so about the center of this blue mass would be the inverter. Farrell Road is over here, and Liberty Road runs along
So your distance from Liberty Road and Carroll.
600 to 1,000 feet.
Is there anyone else who wishes to come up and make any comments or have any questions?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Pegram. I live at 1501 Brunswick Meadows Way, which means that my 01 is the closest to all of that in Brunswick Meadows, yes. That does not indicate, that indicates more trees than there are. I will tell you right now, I know what I look out on. And will you put in more trees to block that kind of stuff over there on that side?
Looking the property, looking out of our property, within the 50 acres, yes.
Okay. Are these trees existent now?
Yes, yes.
This is not the case. I'll tell you right now, this is not the case. Somebody took down trees right there last fall.
We have taken some satellite pictures, and probably these are all satellite pictures, and that's why we're presenting these trees. Probably you are right, and as per today, those trees does not exist. We can do nothing out of our property, out of the landowner property, but we can assure you that those trees within our property exist, and we will not cut them. As I explained at the beginning of the presentation, these are wetlands, federal wetlands, and we will not touch these
Well,
wetlands.
I know, I understand the federal wetlands are, you said it was 12 to 15 feet. State is 100, which means that we are closer than 100 then in that property.
What I mean is that if these are the wetlands, from wetlands to the south, so in the opposite direction of your house, will be 12, 15 feet. But
That's not very far for wetlands.
this is the regulations for federal wetlands. If it was regulated by the state of New York, DEC, that
Yeah.
would be a different story.
What good is this gonna do the town of Brunswick?
What good is this going to do for the town of Brunswick?
This will be good for the state of New York, this will be good for the town of Brunswick, and this will be good for the citizens and neighbors of this town.
In what way?
Okay, let me explain. For the state of New York, there is a mandate for 70% of renewable energy by 2030. And this is a very ambitious target, very ambitious target. For the town of Brunswick, obviously, we'll be paying what is called pilot taxes. Pilot taxes means property taxes that for sure build this a residential, industrial, solar farm, whatever you want to call it, there will be more taxes for the town as the current existing use. And third, for you and the rest of the neighbors, as John, my business partner, explained it, this is a community solar project. It means that those persons who would like to subscribe to renewable energy, but in their houses, they can either not afford, or because the strength of the roof is not good enough to install modules, they can subscribe to a community solar with a discount on the electricity prices. If you ask me if this is a 50% discount, no, this is a 5 to 10% discount. Considering the prices on electricity as for today, I think that everything matters.
How long has your company been in business?
Globally, since 2008.
How long do you expect your fields before decommission? 20, 30 years?
This is a 25 years.
This is 25 years.
This is the program that the state of New York, once you enter into the bidder rate, once you enter into the program of this community solar, they guarantee 25 years.
Okay, and what about decommissioning? What happens with all of this? I mean, this is a lot of toxic stuff.
Let's
And
talk about
what
this,
happens?
because I need to disagree with the toxic, but let's talk about the decommissioning first. Decommissioning. Usually the towns, and the town of Brunswick is not an exception, ask for a decommissioning bond. A decommissioning bond means that we have to put a kind of deposit to make sure that if our company disappears, we decide that we are not interested no longer in business in solar, and we say goodbye, okay, the town has this bond to decommission this solar farm. This is what typically does these towns in New York. If we look to other states, which maybe they have been in the solar business longer than the state of New York, you will see that these bonds are necessary. Why these bonds are necessary? Because if you decommission this has value. The materials of this, the equipment of this, a transformer, a switchgear, an inverter, copper cables, aluminum cables, steel. I don't know if you have heard recently what is the price of the steel bars, of the copper cables, of the aluminum cables. There is a lot of value here. And this pays off, obviously, the commissioning. But again, for your comfort, usually the town of Brunswick and all the towns in New York ask for the commissioning bond to make sure that if for whatever reason we don't want to continue or we got bankrupted or wherever, then they have the tools to decommission this solar farm. Back to your question about toxicity, we can talk for hours. We can provide you all the breakdown materials of this equipment to show you that in your house you have more toxic materials than in the entire solar farm. Basically, this is silicium, which is the most common sand, the most common material on planet Earth, plus some plastics, plus some aluminiums, plus some copper cables. So
Do they have cadmium in theirs?
no, this is very, very, very old solar modules.
Okay.
We are not planning to use this. This is a completely old technology, obsolete, with a very low efficiency. This is what is called thin film modules. Obviously, because of the efficiency, but also for the concerns of these toxics, are not using any longer. We are using polycrystallines, which is basically this silicium, this sand.
Okay, what about weather? Weather is an issue for damage of these, which can cause trouble, especially next to wetlands if you're only 12 to 15 feet away. I understand, we all know our weather has changed significantly in the past 10 to 15 years. You know, when did we expect a tornado in Mechanicville 20 years ago? What about weather? We are close to water here. You've got a stream going through here, you've got wetlands. How strong are these? They're talking about hurricanes, tornadoes, hail in particular, that we experience and have experienced more so in the past 15 or so years. That damages that, which can damage the soil. That's my concern. This is my concern not only for me on the corner, but also for the whole town, for all of us here.
Take the microphone once again.
Thank you. I share your concern, and I share your concern because the first affected will be John and I about this weather. The solar modules on top of the land, what they are doing is protecting the land from erosion. The first heat from this snow or this will be the solar modules. So it's a kind of protection for the land, not for the modules. Hurricanes, tornadoes, okay, the calculations that our engineering firm does about how strong are the steel structure takes into place these tornadoes, these hurricanes. I cannot tell you that, yes, for sure, don't worry, whatever will happen, this will never be destroyed. No, no company built a bridge that whatever happens, this will resist. But similarly, we'll take the similar civil engineering concerns that building a bridge. In normal conditions or in extreme conditions, this will resist. If a tornado happens that was completely unexpected, that was 1 in 1,000 years, I don't know how it will resist this solar farm. I don't know how it will resist the houses around the solar farm. It may happen that the houses flies to the solar farm. Again, we are taking the same considerations, building a house, building a bridge, building a road, to try to, in even abnormal extreme conditions, these to last. But if something, I will not promise what is not true. I will not tell you, no, whatever happens, it doesn't matter, this will resist. No, in the same way that you don't know, I don't know my house, if it will resist, if it comes a completely abnormal tornado.
I'm not necessarily talking about a house or property itself. I'm talking about damage and toxic materials to the land. So I would personally, board, prefer not to have this in our town.
Is your property currently on the way?
No, a local resident, longtime resident owns that property and a number of other properties. So we're gonna be leasing the land.
Our preference always is to buy the land. But in this case, the landowner has only offered us a land lease. He has plans for the rest of the 79 acres. And he doesn't want to sell this land.
Can't wait to hear that.
Is there anyone else who wants to come up and make any comments to the record?
I'm Diane Connor, and I'm at 2301 Brunswick Meadows Way. The one slide that you had up, it showed where you're going to have an underground portion of this transmission line. I'd like to see that again. I'd like to explain to me how that's going to not affect the creek that's back there. Since I received a notice that it's 300 feet away from me and the creek's about 300 feet away, so how does the math look on it?
Probably the parcel is 300 feet from you. It doesn't mean that the solar modules or the feeder line is 300 feet from you. This is, I think, an important clarification. Because what we have to measure is that the distance from solar modules to houses, minimum is 650 feet. But if your house, I'm not saying that it is your house, but if your house is this house, which is very close to the same parcel that you are using to install the modules, we have received a letter. But please consider that it's not the same distance. The solar module to your house, at the end of the board, the boundary of the property to your house. But to your question, this portion is underground. It's a request from the landowner because he has plans for this portion of land, and it's also a request from the town to minimize the overhead walls.
And how does that affect the creek that's
Here's
there?
the creek right here. Here's Brunswick Meadows.
Uh-huh.
This blue line is the creek,
So it's on the hillside line.
and we're above, or to the west of the creek.
Was there a-
cable will be conduit.
It will be possibly inside the It will be a cable inside the plastic bundle, yes,
encasing concrete.
yes.
More than one tube for growth?
That will depend on the EPC contractor and our negotiations with the construction company. Usually what we do is that to prevent that the tree grows the roots and destroys the cable, we usually put a spare conduit to produce some repairs, not some extension. I mean, our plan is not to enlarge this solar farm in the future. Our plan is that during these 25 years of operation, there will be problems, as in every business, and we try to anticipate possible solutions for those problems.
Okay, I still didn't get a clear understanding of how many trees you plan on taking down. Again, we're very protective of our wildlife. I mean, we're in the town of Brunswick, but we're very close to the city of Troy, and it's our babies. We watch them every day. We feed out, we see the turtles, the turkeys, the groundhogs, the deer, the fox,
Even the toy dogs.
the coy dogs, they keep us up at night, but, you know, we have to deal with the field of wars too, we deal with that, but, so, how are you connected with the field of wars for this? Where are they?
If I understand it correctly, if your ask is how many acres of trees will cut, I don't have this number today, but I can provide you a number of how many acres of trees we are
Acres
planning
of trees?
to keep, to have.
Acres of trees, okay.
It's most, so Field of Horrors is right here, and there's a lot of open field, you can look on the satellite image. The trees we're gonna cut are around the wetland, like to the southwest of the wetland, which again, there's a big buffer between your neighborhood and your parcel. So we're gonna cut these trees right here.
So is this parcel going to become flat,
We're not gonna do any groundwork.
so you're gonna go up over the hill with the
Correct.
bumps and all that? Again, can you explain the fence a little bit? I wasn't quite clear on the fence.
Yeah, have you ever seen an orchard where they have fence around it? It's like steel wire fence and the openings are about like that big. It's
Okay.
like 6 to 8 feet tall. So wood post, steel wire fence around, all the small game can run in and out of it.
Sounds kind of dangerous for the field of wars.
No, no, this is not our experience, this is not our experience.
The field of horrors are people and kids running around at night, running into a steel post fence. That does sound kind of actually dangerous.
Well, it's like a farm fence. It's, you know.
Do you
it's
know what the field of horrors is?
Yeah, it's a haunted house.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Haunted field, not just a house, a whole field, and they scream all night long. Children, big people, live in the condition. So again, when you decommission this,
It will depend on when we start construction, it will depend when we get approval, when we can start construction, when we can complete construction, plus 25 years.
25 years out,
So it means that 2048, 2049, 2047, this will be when we commission this solar farm.
you mentioned the fan is supposed to be as loud as that, but you said it's also in a container. That's gonna be a big fan, so it's not gonna be that size of the fan. It sounds kind of like,
This will be probably, I mean, I don't know if you know how it works in inverter, it has different portions. Usually, it will be, in our case, 2 inverters. If it is possible, we will join into 1 inverter. From a common point of view, it makes more sense. But probably, to be on the conservative side, 2 inverters, and each inverter will have 2 fans of these. This will be containerized. That means that the metallic container will prevent.
sounds like you need to
this
have a decibel level on that, because I'm not sure, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand what
We
you're
can provide this report.
Because I don't, you know, when you say all that, I don't understand what.
Yeah.
What we will do is that we'll provide.
Is that night? I don't know if this thing runs at night? Does it
It
run-
doesn't,
Does not run.
yeah, it's not producing at night. So it's
Okay,
not-
so it only runs what it produces?
Correct.
Okay, so is it produced with cloudy skies, snow showers, rain? You know, what is it?
It produces
Only if fun's day?
only when there is light. So let's say from 6 a.m. to, depending on the part of the year, if you ask me, as per today, it will be producing, yes, it will not be producing at full power. So you will, full power means that it is not full light. So the inverter will not be at full power. The fans at this time will be shut down.
Are you anybody gonna receive a, tax benefit for this? Maybe it's a question for the town?
Individually,
Sounds like maybe there's a tax benefit somewhere.
We don't receive tax benefits, as a community solar farm. We're paying taxes.
Maybe the landowners?
I don't think there's tax programs or benefits for the
I don't, anything's possible. I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? I know you said, I agree, where's the entrance road? Where's the entrance road?
It's from Farrell Road. The entrance that you use for House of Horrors and paintball field, that's gonna be the road. We're just gonna piggyback like that.
How many solar panels are you anticipating building?
11,000, probably, I don't know by heart, but 10,000, 11,000.
So they're all what size?
It's in meters because they use international
meters?
meters because they use international system and Chrome is 1 meter by 2 meters. So approximately 3 foot by 6 foot.
Have you built similar projects in the area?
And much, not in this area, but around the world, much.
Are you in New York State, you drive to, listen to, and look at?
Not in the state, at this moment, no.
Massachusetts, anywhere in the Northeast?
All projects that at this moment does not belong to us. So
Are you similar to other companies? I know building one of the international
Absolutely.
I get an idea of what this is? or-
Very standard technology. It's tried and true. You can look at every municipality in the area. There's solar farms all over the state. So you can just drive by, park the car and see if you can hear it. You can take a look at it. But we have 15 projects that we're developing right now in New York State. So.
I'm going to travel now, so I'm going to ask you one question. If I look right along Oakwood Avenue, after the state is done, I walk Oakwood Avenue, I go Carroll Road, I go up Liberty Road, I walk down, I come down by on the other side, we get down Meadows. Where and when, how much will I see and where would be the vantage points where I might actually see this? Maybe I'm in this guy's house, and I'm going to the Meadows, I'm on the second floor bedroom, and I look out, I can't really see it. If I'm on Farrell Road, I'm in one of those houses in the second bedroom upstairs. I'm looking out at the field where I used to see nice field. Is that, am I gonna be able to see?
So you're not going to be able to, no, you're not. There's so much tree cover, and you can confirm, you can go on Google Earth, and there's nowhere you can see even from our simulations.
So if I walk both rivers, and if I walk in field of borders, I walk by the.
Well, if you walk in the field of horrors, you'll see our fencing, you'll see the different landscape and things like that.
It's also, I see things from behind the new storage places, I walk back at the property place, it's there.
The Diamond Rock Plaza.
No.
Storage.
Storage. Okay. Well, it's heavily wooded back there, so I don't think you can see
It
it.
is, it's funny, it's nice, I used to ride back there, and it's a nice street, but, you know, there's a lot of open fields. So how high I have to be
Yeah.
before I'm looking down on the fields, and now I see it, but not.
All of our analysis points that this is a very well sited project. It's not like it's on the side of a highway with no open farmland where we're going to need to build a berm and.
I'm more concerned about people that live on Farrell and down where you guys are, so, well, you can't see it from the back of your house. So if I go upstairs in my bedroom, I'm down a little higher, well, I see it now. I mean, have you done studies, have you thought about that?
We have.
Part of it. And you're sure this will be seen as I drive up to the town hall building.
We can show these simulations, but in addition, what I encourage is that if you go to any public program, like Google Earth, you can see the elevation of the Farnell Road. You can compare the elevation of this portion. You can consider that we will be keeping the trees, and on average, the trees will be 50, 60 feet. It's very easy.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I agree, I expect more presentation, that was small pictures, things, both with whatever we do by seven. That point, we have to some other ideas. Looking at here, this is what we're quite confident. Thank you.
I just got one more question. I'm from Cynthia Martin from Brunswick Meadows. I just have one question. So I see where you guys have outlined the 15 acres, and there's almost 80 acres there that Mr. Murley owns. Do you plan on trying to enlarge the area at all?
No, not for our project, because we're limited by the capacity of the power lines. We can't go any bigger.
So this is as big as you're gonna get?
Correct.
Okay.
Susan Trahan, 1503 Brunswick Meadows. I don't have a question for you, I just want to express my opinion. I don't think the solar farm belongs in such a residential area. Thank you.
Earlier you brought up what have you.
Go first.
Okay.
Ken Terrell, 1901 Brunswick Meadows Way. I didn't expect to come up here and ask any questions, or I have to tell you, I do appreciate that the town is doing this. I know that they're legally obligated to do this with the residents in the neighborhood. But what I'm observing here is a very limited, reserved, very conservative, and not forthcoming presentation by the company that's purchasing this land from Mr. Murley. And that concerns me, is that we've seen a couple slides at a distance in the fog of a few lights here. This is not a presentation. This is not a demonstration. There was one 3D simulation that lasted about 5 seconds. The people in this community need to be able to see an actual presentation. They deserve that. We all deserve that. You deserve that. It's all of our town. We need to actually see what it is that they're saying. They keep saying, trust us, believe us. No. That's not what this is. I don't buy any of that. I'll accept it when they present it, but not at their word. Their word is here is to, and I'm sure they're nice folks, and they're trying to make a buck doing what they do. I get that. No offense to you gentlemen, what you do in your business. That's not the point. The point is that they're actually here to buy land, to make money. They don't really care about us. They need to do this because they're obligated to do it. They have to do it. So, but they're gonna tell us the least amount to get through this meeting so that they can move forward. I'm disappointed that, is Mr. Murley here? Why isn't Mr. Murley here? He's a nice guy. He mows the back lawn, by the way, behind our condominiums, which is wonderful. He doesn't ask for any money, which is very nice. Well, we don't know what his motivation is with the rest of his property, and that's another topic for another day. There's no benefit to the community other than tax money going into the town, which is good for the town, but it doesn't benefit our taxes at all. We're not saving a dime by allowing this in our backyard. The gentlemen say that you won't be able to see it from your house. Have you ever heard that? You won't be able to see it from your house. You won't be able to see it from my house. Well, it doesn't affect me because you won't be able to see it from my house. Somebody's going to be able to see this, and it's going to be unsightly. The woman who lives at the closest proximity she's gonna see it. Her upstairs neighbor's gonna see it. I know that field behind that house like the back of my hand. I know that there was a comment earlier about how many trees are present in the simulation. Your simulation is not correct. There are not that many trees. That's it. That was presented in the earlier pictures. I know every inch of that piece of property in the back. It's good for the town to get some money back out of the land that's in there because the town's gonna make some money and our taxes might not go up. But the neighbors aren't getting anything out of this except for having it politely, gently, and I'm all for free market capitalism. But we're not getting anything out of this. Nobody is. The town gets a little tax money, Mr. Murley's gonna make a lot of money, and these guys are gonna make a lot of money, and good for them. But this isn't for that field. It's not right. And I hope that the town officials here recognize that you were either elected or appointed to represent us. The people in this room, if you polled them, and not everybody that lives in Brunswick Meadows and in the neighborhood could make it today. But I can tell you, while I know I can't speak for anybody but myself, I can tell you that if you poll this room, there isn't a yay in it. What I'm hearing in the sense of the feel of this room is that we are concerned and we are sheep. The gentlemen here are not giving us the full picture of the impact on the community and the land. These sites are old dump sites and an incinerator site. Where's the environmental impact study on this land? Where is it? Once they start digging, they're digging. What are they going to disturb? We don't know what they did in the 60s and 70s. None of us were in positions that we're in now to know what happened back in 1960 and 1970 when there was an incinerator and a dump on Mr. Murley's hill. We don't know. What happens when the rain is always running down off of these solar panels? Where's the rain going to go? It's going to go down into trenches. It may increase the flow of water into our creek. Is it safe? We don't know that. They say, well, okay, there's not so much electricity that there's going to be a radiation issue to the neighborhood. I did some research on that. They are correct. There's not a lot of impact from the amount of electricity and radiation that comes from these solar farms. I believe that. But still, there is an environmental impact that is not being shared or hasn't been done. And I'm asking the town, and I can only speak for me, I'm asking the town, where is the environmental impact? If there is one, I apologize, I haven't seen it. If there isn't one, there needs to be one. And the benefit to the town for taxes is wonderful, but it should not be the reason to put this in the backyard of this neighborhood. So, I'm not a politician, I'm not a public speaker. I'm retired and I don't like being in front of microphones. But these gentlemen are not showing the whole thing. They're not. And I'm not saying that they're refusing to, that's not what I'm saying. Their projection in their computer here has a lot more information than the 3 pictures that we just saw. And they're not sharing it unless we ask for it. That's not fair. That's not right. Share it with us. Do it now. It started at 7 o'clock. We should have been done at 7:15, right? That didn't happen. There's probably an hour's worth of information just from the PowerPoint alone for the folks in this room to sit and digest for maybe a few hours. This is coming at us too fast. And while this may be the only meeting, and maybe it's only the first meeting, I think there should be more. Not to delay the gentleman from their business. That's not the point. It's not that we're against solar electricity. But what we are for is this neighborhood. That's what we're concerned with. When we moved into Brunswick Meadows, you have this little condo community that is tucked into this pasture full of wildlife. It's beautiful. When the gentlemen say that they don't believe, and it's not their experience, that it is going to displace the wildlife, I'm telling you, there's a dozen deer that live in that field safely that they're going to lose their home. Okay, and the deer will go somewhere else, and they do. It's usually out front of a car, or they're eating the neighbor's arborvitaes instead of being up in the fields. Mr. Merling has a wonderful piece of property, and I know he pays taxes on it. But it should not be on our backs that he gets to reduce his tax burden because he owns land and to make a profit, which is fine. Again, free market capitalism. He can do what he wants with his property, I suppose. But there's no benefit to the people in this room. None. Pretty obvious to me. But that's all I have. I think that the gentleman should present the entire presentation and not just the little pieces that somebody has to pop in their head in 15 minutes, say, geez, I should have asked that. And again, this isn't about the business or that you have ulterior motives. It's that we're not being shared everything up front, and we shouldn't have to take a day off from work to come down to the town to page through everything, and we're not lawyers, to understand what the impact is going to be on our community. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to come back and revisit this, and not in an attempt to delay the gentleman from the business, but in an attempt to fully understand and recognize what it is that we're allowing in our backyard, if we have any say in it at all. And give us a chance to digest it other than this short meeting. And thank you for your time. Thank you.
Has your company done any core drilling to see what's under the landfill?
Thank you for your comments.
If you have a comment, sir, you're going to have to come up to the microphone. Let the applicant answer the gentleman's questions.
We have already submitted all the copies since February to June. The town has notified the neighbors and has made all this information public for you.
Then I guess we'll all have to come down to town hall one at a time, and maybe we shouldn't do anything until everybody reads it.
Don't let the town, don't let us.
No, we're not blaming anybody. There's no
We have had
blame.
the opportunity to review all this
Yeah,
information.
there's no blame. Just think
Of course
everybody
we
should have a chance
understand.
to digest it.
I've been very respectful with your time, I've not interrupted you. So, again, this information is public for weeks. You have the opportunity to review this. If you ask me to start from zero, maybe this is your interest, and I have no problem at all to run from hours and hours and hours. Maybe this is your interest, but maybe this is not the rest of the neighbor's interest. And that's why the town very professionally asked for these copies and made these copies public. This is one comment. Second comment, I think that you're confused about where we're installing the solar modules and where it was the former municipal incinerator. The former municipal incinerator was this parcel. We are only crossing this parcel with one overhead pole. We have conducted in this one overhead pole all the necessary studies. We have submitted these studies to the DEC and they have approved it. Because now, there is no toxic material, garbage, or whatever in this portion. Where we're installing these solar modules, it is not the former incinerator. So all your concerns about that possible when you are starting digging, be assured that this will not happen. This is not the former municipal incinerator. In addition, or maybe in the past they put something. We have conducted an archaeological study because it was one of the requests from the CHIPO, and we have conducted different samples, more than 100 samples around this, to check what was the composition of the soil. Zero. Zero artifacts it has been found in this land. Zero.
That's terrific, no artifact. But
All
we
the
don't know
all
the
the
impact
information-
of what you're gonna do to the land.
All this
That was
information
my
is,
point.
all this information is public at your disposal.
Sure, and I'll take the time to look at it.
Thank you.
My name is Doug Hanlon, 16 Krieger Lane, Troy. My question is, if this is part of a landfill from years ago, has anybody, the EPA or State Environmental, have done any core sampling and have it analyzed from the geological survey, do core sampling to see what has developed on that land after being buried all these years? It still could be toxic, it could be moving underground from place to place. Normally, they'll come in and do a core sample when they're messing up with the surface, see what's underneath it.
Thank you. Again, we are not installing the solar modules, we are not installing the solar farm on top of the former municipality incinerator. We are not. We are installing in an adjacent parcel, so it's the municipality incinerator. In the middle, there is the house of horrors and the paintball, and then it's the solar farm. So we are in a considerable distance from the municipality incinerator.
We're going pretty much over an hour here, so.
One of the other things that I do want to comment on is that it will decrease our property values. Guaranteed. That is a fact, that it will decrease our property values. Can I go back to the thing where the street is and the,
Oh, yeah. Our laptop died with so we don't have the stream, what's your question?
okay. Where you're talking about, you're cutting down trees, you're going closer to the stream, you're going closer to the wetlands. I know because I watch it happen at every major storm that we have. The rain goes, that stream overflows all the time into the field that you were talking about. It overflows terribly now. I can't imagine what it's going to do when it gets all the rain from the panels, because that's gonna go right down the hill. And right now, we are already having an environmental impact without that stuff there. So I really think the town needs to consider this from all standpoints, because I don't think it's good for our land. And I don't think it's good for our wildlife, and I don't think it's good for our trees, and I don't know that it's worth the tax money.
I know it's past an hour, Russ, I'll be quick here, but my question is for zoning and the plan. I've sat through, I can't tell you how many meetings like this myself, and this presentation didn't do much for me. What concerned me mostly was one, this gentleman asked, can we look at something in New York? Oh, no, we don't get New York, Massachusetts, we didn't get an answer. So I would ask you guys, as the zoning and the planning board, to do some research with this company, get some testimonials from previous jobs they've done and see some of the work they've done. So my last question is, what is the next step now? Somebody said there's a meeting on July the 7th?
That's
today. So I'm retired, I forget. My question is, what is the next step here for us?
I'll just comment on one thing. There are other solar farms, community solar farms.
No, I understand that. We had one in Detroit. We did Detroit dump and it worked out very well. Listen, I'm a Democrat. I love solar farms. Okay?
When the person is asking about sounds and so forth and so on and things like that, I'm sure all these solar farms have the same type of equipment. And, you know, they could evaluate the sound in different areas. Just making that comment. But,
I would just ask you to.
Where are we going from here? Well, all these questions have got to be answered in writing by the applicant. and reevaluate those answers, whether they've been answered fully. I will say one thing, all the information that this gentleman had mentioned is on file for public notice, and it was listed on the public notice that it's there at the town for your review. We have gone as a planning board through a lot of these simulations at our meetings leading up to this public hearing. And that was one of the bases to have the public hearing, that all the information was complete to have the public hearing, to be able to provide that information to the public in the form of, copies of this at the town office available for review. So procedurally, well, now, the applicant's got to address all these issues and then comment on it, and so forth and so on. We haven't decided whether we want to close the public hearing at this point. We may keep it open. And that's to be discussed at this board level before we take any action as far as closing tonight's activities.
Thank you.
Okay, like we're approaching now an hour and 15 minutes.
Excuse me, one comment to the lady that asked for the, we will not produce any land movements. We already mentioned that we will not produce any land movements. So, because we are not changing the orography, we are not adding to a specific point any additional runoff, any additional water. And the PV modules will not create rain, will not create water. So if today there is a problem, this problem will not be magnified, will not be increased because of the solar modules. Actually, the opposite. We can show you some studies that it is the opposite. But anyway.
And it will not be going into the ground, nor will and you're taking down trees that are holding that water away from the stream and that section.
One gentleman was saying, believe me, I'm not saying believe me. What I'm referring is that, please, check on the DEC, the Division of Water, the memorandum of 2018, and you will see the results. You will see the results. It's not my word, it's what the experts in the Division of Water, the DEC, has determined. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I think we've kind of heard most of the comments. Now we're starting to get into duplications of the same comments. I think at this point, just to kind of take a recess and discuss among the board here whether we want to leave the public hearing open to be able to provide more information to the public in the next meeting or continuation of the public hearing. So I'm going to kind of recess the public hearing at this point and just have some discussion among our board and see if they will do the same thing. Does anybody feel?
I want to give all of that a lot more time.
Are you back a little far? I'm scared you're gonna hit the computer. I might back a little far. I had to squeeze everybody. Oh, I know. Yeah. I'm in the car.
I have everybody's attention, we're gonna resume the public hearing at this point. Ma'am? Okay, we have decided that possibly that we're going to entertain having an extension of the public hearing to receive public comments in writing up to about 10 days, at which point the applicant then would evaluate those. We'd also give an opportunity to anybody that wishes to come and look at the material at the town office. There are visual impact documents and so forth and so on. So at this point, I'd like to confer with the ZBA at this point. I'll turn the floor over to Anthony.
Yeah, thank you. No, we're in the same agreement to keep it open for 10 days to receive a public comment. And I just have a few comments if I can make briefly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is to the applicant of the project. So in your written response to the questions that we need to provide that we heard tonight, to assist our understanding of the project, I was just wondering if you could kindly expand on some of the points that were brought up during the public comments. So one would be the distance from 58 Biscayne Boulevard to the project. One would be the height of the fence. And then a better description of the fence, perhaps a visual of what that looks like. You mentioned that it's a fauna-friendly fencing, but what does that look like? What does the top of that look like? What does the bottom of that look like? And also, if you could kindly prepare and give to us the distance between the house of horrors and the project's fence. And then a simulation of the site views from the residential areas. And then again, with some of the points that came up, if you could kindly produce the number of acres of the tree removal. And then also if you could kindly produce the decibel levels that that would be emitted. And for a couple clarifications, if you can kindly clarify whether it be digging or grading. There seems to be some confusion about that. If you could describe the rain runoff from the panels, the impact of the project on neighboring property values, and then lastly, a clarification on whether or not the property owner is leasing, if you are leasing or owning or purchasing from the property owner. Just clarify that. It's been said that there seems to be some confusion. Thank you.
I'd like to.
Yeah, sure.
You will send me some.
Certainly.
In writing, so this way I'm sure that I understood all the questions.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to just ask the applicant to comment on one thing why we have the public hearing. And there seems to be no mention of how the site is going to be maintained. There's going to be mowed, there's going to be vegetation inside the fence line to replace vegetation that was gone. And in the past, we have been very strict on the no use of pesticides and herbicides. So could you just comment on that a little bit? For the benefit of the public.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. As we discussing.
Dead battery, Luis.
As we discussed on the previous planning board meetings, we will not be using pesticides, we will not be using herbicides. So that's for sure. The maintenance of this solar farm is relatively easy. Yes, we'll be mowing the grass a couple of times per year, probably in April, probably in August, the second one, depending a little bit on the season. But we know that the main point of concern is the pesticides and herbicides. We will not be using these pesticides and herbicides.
Yeah, and typically when we're preparing the site, we'll plant local grasses underneath so that we, have turf grass underneath and wildflowers.
Thank you. Okay, then on behalf of the planning board, we'd like to close the actual public hearing, however, have a 10-day extension for anyone to submit written comments or emails. And those will also be part of the record, and the applicant will have to respond to those also. Does everybody have anything else that would like to add to that before I close? I'll make the motion that we close with the 10-day extension to receive written comments.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the floor over to Diane.
Yeah, regarding the zoning board of appeals, I make a motion to hold over 10 days to receive public comment. Remember second. Thank you, Patricia. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Okay, at this point, the zoning board has made a determination meeting.
Russ, before folks leave, I think we should clarify on the record that it's 10 calendar days or 10 business days. We want to make sure everyone understands what the time period is, so let's clarify that for the record.
So the zoning board will keep it open for 10 business days.
10 business days?
That's the same for the, concur also as the planning board. Okay, Ann, do you want to close your meeting?
Yeah, so before we close our meeting on the issue of the amended site plan of the land development project, the zoning board of appeals gives consent to the planning board in regards to the secret determination to give the secret lead agency.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then, so I make a motion to close the zoning board of appeals special meeting tonight. Would a member second? Thank you. Patricia, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, now, Now I'm going to start our regular meeting, and our regular meeting also includes a public hearing. This is the public hearing for the Whitbeck minor subdivision. I'll have, I don't think I have to go through the procedural thing, but I will have Attorney Gilchrist read the notice of public hearing.
I'll be right back. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the planning board of the town of Brunswick at 7:15 PM on Thursday, July 7, 2022, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12880, to review a minor subdivision application submitted by Richard Whitbeck and Jacqueline Whitbeck to create 4 new lots containing approximately 4 acres, 3 acres, 6 acres, and 31 acres on property located at 131 Krieger Lane. Copies of the application and supporting documents are available at the Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing. Again, this was published in the official newspaper for the town, the Eastburg Press, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to owners of the property located within 300 feet of the project site.
Thank you. I'll have the applicant come up and give a presentation for the public. Please.
Okay, good evening, folks. My name is Brian Holbrook. I'm a licensed land surveyor. And my clients are Richard and Jackie Whitbeck, who live on Krieger Lane. And what we are proposing to do with this project is to create 3 new building lots. Lot 1 will be 4.02 acres, right here, just as you make the bend on Krieger Lane. Lot 2 will be 3.2 acres, and Lot 3 will be 6.77 acres, right here, as outlined by this thing. That leaves a remaining acreage for Mr. and Mrs. Whitbeck of 31.69 acres, which is outlined here in yellow. The Whitbecks are proposing to sell the 3 lots for single-family residential homes. Mr. and Mrs. Whitbeck's son is planning to build on this lot 3 actually, right here in this meadow. And lot 1 and 2 will be for sale. And that's not it.
Thank you, Brian. At this point, I'm going to open up the floor to anyone who wishes to come up and make any comments in the public. It's all right, you don't have to if you don't want to.
My name is James Dayton, and I don't want to see all the traffic. The traffic increase up there would be terrible. And when we first moved up there 30 years ago, there was supposed to be 6 lots up there, building lots. And now they've subdivided it several times, as you probably know. So, all I got to say.
Fine. Thanks, Jim.
My name is Doug Hanlon, 16 Krieger Lane. I have a couple questions. Like the 4 acres lot, somebody buys that, builds a house, they towards the front. What's to prevent him to subdivide that, put a house behind his house on that 4 acres? Is there any rules in that? The 6 acres then, given to the grandson, can that be subdivided by him later on down the road that would build a house right behind the house of Livingston house, or would decrease our value? Right now we have a beautiful view, and I hate to see that go and decrease my value if somebody puts the house, right up against my property or any of them alongside me. So how many times do you keep subdividing? Like, here's my big question: the new owners either subdivide these plots or not?
I will give you a comment on that. In order to get this minor subdivision, the applicant had to get a waiver from the town on the number of houses at the end of a dead-end street. According to the zoning laws, a maximum of 12. This would create more than 12, I believe, created 17. So that process would have to be addressed for somebody who wishes to subdivide. Yeah. If they subdivide within 7 years, they have to go through a full subdivision procedure. They cannot get a waiver.
What does that actually mean?
Well, it's a more extensive process of mapping and topo and so forth and so on, and it's more expensive to do. So now would be the time if this person is going to divide those properties up, is to do it now. They have chosen not to do that. They have chosen to have 3, 4, small 8. But to answer your question, if they go through all that process and they have access to a road, a driveway access road, they can subdivide that again if they want.
They can. That's my question. How many times will all this keep being subdivided in the future?
It's zoned R40, A40. Technically, that's minimum of 40,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle Stratton, 14 Krieger Lane. My question for the board is, anybody actually driven up Krieger Lane recently? If you have 2 vehicles more than a compact car, you can't pass today.
The lane width is 20 feet on average.
We went through
We did a road study.
The section from the beginning until probably the 3rd or 4th residence is far from that.
I
There's
had
two
one,
blind spots.
I
If
had one
anybody's coming
spot
down the hill-
19.5.
I'm sorry?
I had one spot about 19.5, 19.6.
You have 2 travel lanes in 1960?
It was because the erosion on the side of the blacktop.
Correct. One side is a creek, and one side is a 3 to 4 foot ditch. So in the winter, or anytime there's more than 2 cars, I've seen multiple people slide off the side of that road. We have kids that go up and down it, lots of traffic already. My question is, what's the town gonna do about the road? That's what I really like. That road is not safe for more cars. Is that something you guys decide? Is that the town, another department? I mean, there's no sidewalk, there's really no place to walk, nowhere to recreate. Yeah, like you said, 19 feet of road, that's it. 2 cars go by, you're in the ditch. Correct? And what's a legal lane?
What is a legal lane?
What's a lane? If you define a lane of traffic, 10 feet?
I'm not sure. This is a non-deeded roadway. It's a roadway by use. The town does not own this roadway.
Town maintains this roadway.
Town maintains the roadway, correct.
So the town doesn't own the road? Then I don't know. Can I ask who does?
It's part of public use.
Highway by use.
Yeah, it's a highway by use.
It's been used as a public thoroughfare.
Okay.
So that means that the town has the right to maintain that road. It's just that they don't own the property. Whatever the deeds filed.
Somebody has to own it,
Center
right?
of the road, some people might own, 20 feet from the center line.
I'm guessing somebody will
It
handle it.
just depends.
So at this
As far
point,
as
there's
the
no,
lane width, it depends on the classification of the road and the speed. There's a lot of factors that
so
go
there's
into it.
no posted speed limit. I'm just curious. That's my big concern is when we add 3 more houses, right, there's 1 room. So you're gonna add a minimum of 3 vehicles, probably 6 or plus, every day up and down that road. You're gonna basically add 30% traffic.
Planning board doesn't have any jurisdiction over maintenance or any changes to the road that have to be done.
No, but it's something to take into consideration before approval. Right, something we should ask the other town department about, what the plan is. That's my concern. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make any comments?
Jason Jones, 8 Krieger Lane. I kind of want to piggyback on Kyle's thing about the road. We've got a lot of children in our neighborhood, and that road, people fly up and down it already. It is very narrow, we've got grandchildren in our area. The amount of traffic that's there already, just from the amount of lots and houses that are on our road. I'm not a big fan of what's going on, it's not up to me, it's up to you, obviously, to make the decision. My question for you as a board would be, why is there a maximum amount of lots for a cul-de-sac? Why do you have that rule of 12 lots for a cul-de-sac like that anyway? What is the purpose of it?
Mainly, I would say one of the things is for fire protection. If you've got to get a bunch of trucks up there, it's a dead-end roadway, and you don't have any hydrants out there, you have no municipal water, they got to start up a tanker train.
Very true. Tanker trucks are very large, aren't they?
They're the same size as your pumper.
Okay.
You just use your pumper as tankers.
My point is, if the road is not made for them, then why, again, with Kyle's situation, what is, or who is going to make sure that the road is now allowing that type of heavy equipment?
The fire department that has jurisdiction over that area has been queried with this and gave it its okay.
That's the only reason why you put a maximum of 12 lots on that end street?
I don't know, that's my guess. I wasn't around when that happened.
Because I'm looking at it as right now, I love my neighborhood, right? I love where I live, and I love it because people have the property that they have and the space between the houses that they have. And it's not a very busy road compared to Lock Row Road, okay? I can get off of Lock Row and turn on Krieger, and it's a whole other world. But it's busy enough for a dead-end street. We don't need more homes. If the maximum was 12 and we're already at 15, why do we need, or why do you approve more? That's my concern. When does the bleeding stop? When does it end when you say, okay, that area neighborhood now has enough lots? Because now this grandson, these other two owners, if it's less than an acre is all that you need to subdivide, and they're given 3 acres, are you saying you can put 2 more houses on each one of these lots? So looking at that, I can put 6 houses, 4 houses, and 3 houses if they subdivide, these new owners, because they have the opportunity to do that. So you're talking 13 more houses, 26 more cars on a dead-end street. When does this board say the waiver is no longer? We cannot allow this. That street is at its max. The neighborhood does not want to be a big neighborhood. If I wanted a neighborhood like that, I would have bought a house in Latham, where I could drive right down and my neighbors are 30 feet away and we can all play basketball on the street. That's not where we live. That's not the neighborhood we have. That is my concern. We're already over the maximum. Waivers were already approved to get us further over the max. The max is 12, we went to 15, so waivers were already approved. Now we're going from 15 to 17 and they're still getting approved. I don't know why that happens. When do you say, no, it's enough? Is there a rule for that? Do you have a magic formula that says, okay, there's that many houses, sorry, you can't subdivide? I don't know, I'm asking you that because I'm not gonna wanna live there if there's 36 houses on the street. Okay, we have 11 now, but we could have 17. And that 17 could turn into 34, could turn into 36, could turn into 50 based on the amount of acreage. I mean, what do you say? She still has 30-some acres left? 30, I'm sorry, Mr. Holbrook, how many left?
31 or 32.
And I don't know that they're going to do this. It's just a concern of mine as I grow up. I have a ranch. I bought a ranch. Why? Because it's one family living. So that as I get older, I'm not going up and downstairs. This is my forever home. This is the home that I'm going to pass on to my children if they choose to live there. I don't want them to now have to worry about 75 homes on a house that should only have 12 lots, according to our town laws.
I'd like to make one comment on
Please.
Procedurally. When this situation comes up before the planning board and there's over the maximum of 12 houses, We do not grant that waiver.
Okay, thank you.
The town grants that waiver.
Okay.
However, we evaluate the situation, and we make a recommendation to the town board on that situation.
Okay.
In this particular case, we went through an extensive process, and Brian can attest to this, of measuring that road throughout that whole thing to make sure that it was at least wide enough, or could be wide enough, to allow for adequate traffic through there. So that was one of the things we did. And when the recommendation was made, it was made on that basis. So just to show, to tell you procedurally how that happened. We,
In regards to the road and.
we do not grant those type of waivers, the town does.
Okay.
But they asked us for a recommendation. Sometimes they don't. You know, They
Listen,
they
I'm
know the
all for,
situation.
handing, like I said, I'm gonna hand my family, when my kids are grown and I'm out of here, I hope to be able to say, you're living at 8 Krieger Lane, okay? And I'm sure that's what Jackie and Dick wanna do as well, right, with their grandson, and hand him over some property as well. But why? Because it's a great neighborhood, we wanna keep it that way. And if this is the last of it, so be it, but it still increases traffic, that needs to be addressed. And I know you all work together, from the Department of the roads and all that good stuff, to the planning boards, to the zoning boards, and getting everything together, and it's great. But I just need to know, when does it end? And you don't have that answer.
We don't have that answer.
I know that. But in I guess I
mean,
wanted
we
to speak for
we
my neighborhood and say,
could-
when does it stop?
We certainly can look at that when it comes again, when we have to make another recommendation to the town board, increase the number of houses on that street. And I don't have an answer.
Right, I mean, because there's a speed limit
How
for a
many
reason.
acres do you have, if you don't mind?
Just under 3, 2.5.
You can subdivide yours.
I love my privacy.
But I'm just
That's
saying.
what I'm saying. But I get what you're saying. You're saying if I wanted to, I could add a house.
We're
I
getting,
can
we're getting a little out of the
But I know-
realm of the public here.
Okay, sorry.
I'm not supposed to be sparring with the people. But I'm just trying to explain that, I mean, if your property is zoned, well, I mean, the minimum size lot in all the zoning is 40,000 square feet. So technically, somebody, a developer could come into that property, buy it from the Whitbecks, the whole kit and caboodle, divide it into 15 lots, and say, I'm gonna put the road through there. You can't predict what people are gonna do with the property.
I guess my major question was what sparks whoever the town to say, yes, this waiver is granted, to do more divisions on a road that is already over its max? I guess that was my main question.
We've had in the past where there's been situations where, for example, there was an added building lot, the road just did not support. It was denied.
So mostly the road itself. So the
It has to do with the road, it has to do with the accessibility of emergency vehicles and so forth and so on, that's safe.
I mean, I will tell you that when a school bus comes up and I'm trying to get down that road, it's not safe. I back right back up my driveway and let the school bus pass. But that's not the way it should be, right? The school bus and I should both be able to go down the road with no issues. So if that's part of your decision and whatnot, and whether or not this goes through, or if it already is going through, I'm not sure, public hearing wise, you need to know that. Because when the school bus does come up, it is not a favorable thing. And I've seen the school bus back all the way down from the Whitbacks because it couldn't turn around in there, well, I guess it's a driveway, but at the end of the road and back all the way to the Daytons and go down their driveway and come straight back down. So I've seen that as well, so that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Debbie Dayton, and we live on 89 Krieger Lane. And where they plan on building these houses directly is across from us. So when we moved there, we built there 30 years ago, there were 5 houses. Now, there are so many houses and the traffic is bad. And we were sitting on the porch this week knowing that there could be 2 homes built right across from us. So this is what we will be looking at for the rest of our lives. But when we moved there, we were told it was a lane and there were only a certain amount of homes allowed on the lane. And we were told it was farm country or farmland. Well, all of that has changed with all the new homes that have come. But we're at the point, we've been there, like, I agree with everything Jason said. You buy that land because it's private and it's your forever home. But now we're at the point if it sells, these 2 houses go, we're selling. It doesn't feel at home anymore. So that's a concern. And as he was talking about the road, one of our kids went over the bank on Krieger because of 2 cars, probably around 15 years ago. And nothing's changed there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question to the board. My name is Gail Hanlon, I live at 16 Krieger Lane. And how does one get a waiver? How does the town decide to give somebody a waiver to subdivide again and again? How do they make that decision? Can you tell me the procedure that happens?
Sure, I'm happy to. So in this case is a good example. So there was an application for a subdivision. And the town code does have the provision that there's a limit of 16, or strike that, 12 lots on a cul-de-sac or dead-end road. But an applicant can certainly request a waiver from that standard that's allowed, or it's at least provided for in the subdivision regulations. So the procedure then would be, as the chairman indicated, the planning board reviews that request, the total number of requested additional lots on the road and on the property, and analyzes whether that area is appropriate for the additional lots. And they do look at issues regarding adequacy of the road, emergency access, and safety issues. And then a recommendation is made by the planning board. The matter is then referred to the town board. And the town board then considers the project, the proposal, the recommendation of the planning board, and the town board determines whether to grant a waiver, meaning those requested additional lots can be approvable on that dead end or cul-de-sac road. In the event it's approved by the town board, in this case it was, the matter is referred back to the planning board. The planning board's continued the subdivision review process.
Okay, so it's a big, long process. So they did look at the roads then, and they did estimate that, someone did.
Correct. In this case, there was actually a fair amount of investigation on site regarding road width. I know the planning board review engineer was involved. Members of the planning board were involved. Coordination with the fire department was involved to determine whether the road was adequate for the requested additional building lots.
And one other question, when we came in and looked at the plans, we were told that driveways can only be placed on an existing road. I think it's about that. So any driveways for, especially for the 6-acre lot, has to come off of the road that's already there. Is that correct?
Yeah, you need 15 foot to a public right of way, minimum.
Right.
Right, so each of the proposed new building lots would require a minimum of 15 foot of frontage on an existing public road.
Okay,
Yep, that's the legal requirement.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to come up and make any comments? One more time. Does anybody else wish to come up and make any comments? Have any questions at this point? Okay, the applicant will be required to answer all these comments in writing, presented to it. And we will review the comments to make sure that they are adequately addressed. Once again, does anybody wish to come up and make any more comments? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we are going to discuss this in our regular meeting. So I'm going to start our regular meeting after the two public hearings. First on our agenda is to review the minutes of our last meeting of June 16th. Are there any corrections, additions, or amendments to those minutes?
I had one, page 4, line 19, the statement, Mr. Whitman confirmed that the applicant is working, it should be, I assume, with National Grid, right in front of National Grid.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with that correction. Second. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Just to review quickly our agenda that's supposed to be there. First on our agenda is discussion on the Atlas renewables. Secondly, then, is the WIT deck. Third on our agenda is the Leon site plan amendment. And this involves the applicant seeks an amendment to an existing site plan to add a proposed drive-through coffee shop on an existing commercial property located at 660 Music Road. David Leon is the applicant. Number 4 was Silas major subdivision. That applicant has withdrawn from the agenda, which was to be placed on a future agenda. Number 5 is Patton waiver of subdivision. Applicant seeks to transfer 0.07 acres from 250 Pinewoods Avenue to adjacent parcel at 244 Pinewoods Avenue. Richard Patton and Lynn Patton are the applicants. Number 6 on our agenda was the Brunswick Road Development Major Subdivision, otherwise known as the Brunswick Acres PDD. Applicant proposes a major subdivision with regard to the Brunswick Acres Plan Development District on 44.1 acres. Parcel located along the north side of Brunswick Road, New York State Route 2, just west of Heather Ridge Road. Brunswick Road Development LLC is the applicant. And then we were supposed to also discuss at the end of this proposed zoning board amendments. So first on our agenda was the Atlas renewables. We had the joint public hearing. The applicant has obviously left, but he is required to address all those comments that were made. There has been a 10-day extension to receive public and written and email comments. That was determined to be
July 21st will be the last day that
it's 10 business days.
public comment will be accepted.
Okay. So moving on now to the Whitbeck minor subdivision. You have some comments to address?
Yes, indeed. As soon as Mr. Gilchrist gets me a hard copy of those minutes, I will put together responses to those questions and submit them for us to go over. Whether we can have that done in time for the next meeting or not, I'm not sure, depending on how much time I have. The next meeting comes pretty quick.
Might be a touch aggressive.
That might be a touch aggressive for both you and I. We're both busy guys. So, perhaps I won't be ready to come back at the next meeting, but perhaps the meeting afterwards. I will let Mr. Golden know
When I have those comments
When
ready.
when is the first meeting in August?
4th,
Fourth?
August 4th.
Okay.
That would be my hope, would be to be back on the 4th and be able to go through them with you at that time.
Okay.
The two narrow lots, side by side.
Yeah.
How wide are they?
Over 200. This one's 201, and this one is about 240 big.
And that has the right of way, or it has an easement to the two parcels in the rear. It comes out of.
The easement's
Yeah,
down
their
there.
easement is across this lot. Yeah.
and the-
But I set it up so that from this property line to that easement is over 200 feet.
And Jimmy Big uses that easement?
I guess,
To gain access to his house. There's easements on both sides, because you have the easement to the other parcel on
It's
the
not
east
an
side
easement.
as well.
that's not an easement, that's
Oh.
actual deeded right of way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very
And
thin one, but.
Pretty much every lot on that road, those people bought from the Whitbecks.
Mhm. Pretty much. I'm not sure about down here far.
No, the ones at the beginning of the road, that wasn't on their original parcel.
I think these couple lots did, that was before my time.
When you come out of the woods,
Yep, that's when they start.
that's where the property
Okay.
started.
I did these two lots in 2002. That was when I first started working for the Whitbecks. Did these in 2002.
And one person owns two lots.
Yeah, this person right here. Stratton. Yep.
Where are the lots of our friend from the west?
Right up in the corner. If you can see that cutout next to James Dayton,
The red one on the left.
I can show you. Right here.
Pink lot.
Now, that gentleman, he withdrew his application.
That's correct.
If he was to reapply for that application, he would then still have to go through the process of getting a waiver for the number of houses at the end of a dead-end street. Is that correct?
We'll check the record on that.
Because we never, as far as I remember, it was never submitted, it was never requested.
I think he went to the town board.
He went to the town board.
And we'll have to check the record on that.
Okay.
That may, again, we'll need to check the full record on that.
Okay.
I thought we were counting those in our account.
I thought so too, but again, we'll check the record.
That's where I was going with that.
Well, he went to the town board, whether he got an answer before he was through. He checked the
I believe
record.
he did. I think there were a number of steps that were completed, but he did not complete the planning board process and then withdrew.
If he withdraws the application, that doesn't nullify the waiver?
We'll check the law on that. It's an interesting issue.
Okay, thank you. All right. This doesn't apply to you.
It's all good information.
All right, so,
That's good.
we'll get the comments from the public hearing.
Yep.
And, hopefully we'll get those in writing before the meeting.
Oh, for sure. That's why we definitely need a whole month, I think.
Okay.
That way
so
you've
we
got
don't- we don't
plenty
have
of
to discuss
time. That gives me a little more time to put them together. Yep.
And we'll adjourn you to the fourth.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Russ, could I simply make a procedural suggestion?
Sure.
We do have the board's review engineer here for Brunswick Acres, as well as a number of folks for that project. It would be something for the board to consider, is to take that, particularly since the board's review engineer is here, and they're not till the end of the agenda. Just a suggestion.
Absolutely, we can do that. All right. So we're gonna skip down to the number 6 on our agenda, Brunswick Road Development, major subdivision. And Ron, you gonna come up here and review your letter?
Move it forward, Ron, so you're on the camera.
My bad sign.
Yeah, I know.
That's all. Yeah, good evening. So this project really hasn't been before the board in quite some time. It kind of got stalled with some requests about road stability. I think we can talk about that before that. But so they did go through all that. The project came back. They did a glitch with the health department and the approval of septic systems on the property. And Andy, I don't know if you would like to go through that whole process in terms of how the project first should proceed. I'll go through my letter.
Why don't we start with your letter?
Yeah, I'll go through that, and then I think the bigger issue is really just how the project is moving forward. So this letter, you've seen some of these comments before. You know, a lot of it's on the slope stability comments given prior. Basically, just notes on the plan, clarifying things. So when it's in construction, it's done correctly. The water, some kind of comments on the water system. Again, some of these are holdovers from my last review. Under comments on grading, again, some of that has to do with the large fill area that there's, the stockpile, what I think you call stockpile on the plan, but we're going to put their spoils. So just drawing some benches in that slope to so we're not basically storm like just flipping down the hill. Some other comments on drainage, things about the intersection, trying to avoid water running down the hill and off the pavement into the ditch at the intersection of Route 2 to avoid some erosion problems there. By the way, I did sit with Bill Brandley to go over some of these. He has some good notes about no bearing trees and stuff. So, what we've done anyway. And then some very basic stormwater pollution prevention comments, which really can only be addressed really when the project ready to go. The final signature by the contractor and the town and everything else in that document. So probably the bigger thing here is what's left in the world of permits. They still need DOT permit, they still need the permit coverage for stormwater pollution prevention. They still need approval on site septic systems. And the issue with that was the health department would approve, I believe there was only 13 of the lots as shown on the plans. Their concern was that due to the amount of grading, there was people flying on the site, that some of those would get over compacted and maybe a problem. So they basically wanted the site graded and then those lots tested, the lots of concern tested before they would approve those lots. So it kind of create that chicken and egg scenario, which I am talking about. We still have to go through the water district formation process and the drainage district formation process. I just provided a list of easements. Many of these easements are on the proposed site already, on the proposed project, in control of the project applicant. Some of them are off-site, which we recommend. Obviously, we have some indication that easement is going to be made available. And that's about it. There were no, other than those things, there was no major items. Again, we kind of looked, we met a couple of weeks ago in the town hall to discuss this with the chairman and the applicant and Andy. And this review is kind of looking back at the last plan, which was April of last, I want to say it was April of last year. I'm not sure it was this year at this point. It's been quite a while. So this is really just to go through that and say, okay, what are the odds and ends that you can take care of before, you know, apropos for approval. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to go through the letter yet. I'm sure it was fascinating to read. If any haven't answered questions on my comments anyway.
Anyone have any questions for that? Okay. I think at this point, we'd probably like to get an update from the applicant. Just review our meeting and where we're moving forward to.
Well,
Okay.
and that's fine. Maybe if I can just review some procedural issues, that'll set up the applicant's discussion as well. So on this one, as the board will recall, a lot of review on the project site had been undertaken through Ron's office, through the water department. This board had done a lot of work on the review. And again, remember procedurally, the public hearing has been held on this project. There have been extensions on the time for which to act on the application. Current one runs through September of this year. The issue arose in the spring of this year that was highlighted by Ron, which was the Rensselaer County Health Department review for septic on the site. There'll be public water for the proposed lots, but private septic. And the health department indicated, as Ron stated, some of the lots which would not be subject to substantial grading may be approvable in the ordinary course with perk tests, but there was concern about a number of the lots in the required grading on the site. And the health department indicated it would not entertain a review and approval until the site grading was completed. That was presented by the applicant's engineer, that the conundrum caused by that, which is in the ordinary course, the health department would review and grant approvals for the proposed lots. The planning board would presumably review and, if acceptable, approve the plat. And once the health department reviews and approves the septic design for the lots, and this planning board has approved the subdivision, the plat then gets stamped. It's done. And certain things need to be filed and the project starts, including the site grading. The conundrum here is the health department would not consider approval on 11 of these lots, I think that's the correct number, until the site grading was complete. But the project can't start until the project's been approved. And so there was some discussion about, well, maybe the site can simply be graded under a grading permit. But that really doesn't fit within any of the existing town site grading procedures, and certainly not in connection with a major subdivision. And then the issue was, well, maybe we can phase the subdivision and just approve 13 lots and then do the grading and come back and seek an approval for the second phase, which is the other 11 lots. But as I think I explained to the board before, that's not in the nature of a traditional phasing plan for a subdivision. The traditional phasing plan is each individual phase works on its own. It's independent. If nothing else is done on the site, it still works as a self-contained subdivision phase, and that includes the lot layout. Here, because of the way the site lays out in the grading, you would end up with what amounts from a planning perspective to be a hit and miss neighborhood with houses kind of laid out in a bit of a haphazard fashion. Because if the health department did not approve those remaining 11 lots, then only the first phase would be built. So it didn't fit into the traditional kind of phasing approach. And so we did meet to discuss this. And one option that we arrived at, and it's a procedural option, and we thought it appropriate to discuss with the board and get the board's feedback on it, is to continue the review of this project as the full 24-lot proposed subdivision. Ron's office would continue to review all the engineering based on the full 24-lot build-out. The water district extension, the drainage district would then would proceed with the full 24 lots. The cost to the typical lot owner within the project could be calculated because it's based on the 24 lots. This board could continue to review, as you do in the ordinary course, a subdivision and determine whether it meets your subdivision review standards. Everything else that would require subdivision review, the lot layout, the access road, the stormwater, drainage, water extension, water district, drainage district, all of that could proceed. The one thing that can't be completed is the health department approval for all 24 lots. One procedural option is if this progressed to an approval and it got to the point of a final approval, the law does allow for a conditional final approval where conditions are attached to your approval. And those conditions need to be satisfied within a certain period of time under the law before the plat can actually be stamped and approved. In the ordinary course under the law, if there's conditions attached to final approval, you have, in all likelihood, a year. The law actually says you get 180 days. And if you're making good faith progress on the work that needs to be done to satisfy the conditions, there's up to another 180-day extension. So it's basically, if the project is proceeding, there's a full year to satisfy your conditions. One standard condition which the board attaches to any subdivision is Rensselaer County Health Department approval. In this case, it'd be Rensselaer County Health Department approval for private septic as well as public water extension. We know the site needs to be graded or substantially graded in order for the health department to approve the septic design for those 11 lots. So the option we've discussed with the applicant, with Rick Ross, is if there were that standard condition attached to the preliminary and then final subdivision approval, Rensselaer County Health Department approval for septic, the project could proceed. The plat could not be stamped. The lots could not be marketed. The plat could not be filed in the county clerk's office until the condition is satisfied. But once the final approval, conditional, is entertained, then the town could entertain issuing a grading permit with appropriate security for that. Now, what would that security include? It would be the standard performance bond to make sure that the grading got completed properly. Certainly, they would need to get the infrastructure completed before they could start building homes. So all of this would proceed in the ordinary course, but they simply could not get the plat stamped and signed and filed and market lots until the grading was done, because the grading needs to be done in order to get health department review and approval for the septic design for the remaining 11 lots. Presume for the moment that the grading is done and the health department does approve those 11 lots. They've satisfied the condition for the full 24 lot subdivision. At that point, the plat could be stamped and they just continue with the project. But what happens if the health department doesn't approve some or all of those 11 lots? It would need to come back to this board and ask for a subdivision amendment. And at that point, you could deal with what's the lot layout going to be? Because remember, the plat's not filed yet. The lots have not been legally created yet, and they could do a different lot layout based on what's approvable. And that makes sense from a subdivision standpoint. So it in some way procedurally allows you to continue and complete your subdivision review process. It addresses the 24 lots. It allows the grading work to be done in a manner that it's done before the plat is stamped and signed and the lots are legally created. And so we thought that would be a procedural option to overcome this issue of the health department hesitancy to review and approve the lots on which grading is required. And in my opinion, does protect the town, because while there being approval and work started, the plat is not stamped yet. And no lots have been legally created yet. And there'd be the standard requirements for the bonding in place, the insurances, They roughen the stormwater, they roughen the road, they do things that would be required for infrastructure for the 24 lots, but they're just roughed in, they're not done yet. And if the health department ultimately doesn't approve some or all of those remaining 11 lots, there's still the ability to amend the lot layout, for instance, so that you get an appropriate lot count in there, approvable lot count with a layout that makes sense. Am I missing anything, Ron?
I think you pretty much covered it.
Okay. Questions?
So we work with a blank plat, just road and.
No, you work with the current plat that shows 24 lots with the road, with the stormwater, with the water line extension, with proposed septic locations. That's what you're still reviewing. And if that is approvable, let's presume it gets to final approval with that layout, you act on it, you'd approve it, but it's subject to conditions. It's a conditional final approval. And one of the conditions is you got to get health department approval for all 24 lots. If they can't get approval for all 24 lots, then they come back to this board to amend the layout. We talked about this with the applicant, and everyone understands this is a risk to the applicant because there'll be a lot of site work on the property, bonded just to make sure everything is done properly, without knowing, they're confident they will, but without knowing they'll get health department approval for those 11 lots. Worst case scenario is unlikely, but worst case scenario would be health department approves none of those 11 lots. There's been a lot of site work done then for a 14, 13 lot subdivision. And the applicant understands that going forward, and we've reviewed that, but that would be a risk to the applicant. Not risk to the town, the site would be graded, but even if the project never proceeded, the site would be graded, it would need to be stabilized, it would need to be seeded, and then nothing happens. Unlikely, but that's how that would happen. So the risk, because of the peculiarities of this site, the risk will be on the applicant going forward to invest in that initial site work to get the grading and other site work done without knowing they've got approval for all 24 lots yet. This board may have approved them conditionally, but maybe the health department won't. And that's on the applicant. And if there needs to be changes to the plat layout, as I said, you'll deal with that through a proposed amendment. So it won't be a blank one with just infrastructure. It's the full 24 lot layout as currently proposed, with the full grading plan as proposed.
So we're given the conditional approval on 24 lots. So health department comes back and says 19 are good.
Yeah.
We redraw the map.
At that point, the applicant would not be able to satisfy a condition to your approval, and your approval no longer exists. You're unable to satisfy a condition. They would need to come back in, propose an amended layout with the health department approved lots, and that you would have to review that.
And does that constitute a new application, or is that an amendment?
To me, I think, given the status of the project, I would consider it to be an application to amend the previously conditionally approved plat. I don't think you'd start the whole process over again. It's just a plat amendment at that point.
Anyone else have any questions? Ron, do you have any more comments on that?
No, I think Andy explained it very well. I mean, just so everybody understands too, they really just need the site upgraded, right? So they don't have to have the down fine grader and everything else to do what they need to do to get health department. They're probably gonna know relatively early this whole grading process, you know, where they are with the health department.
Okay.
That's a good question. It's now July 7th, and say they work, I don't know when the health department stops doing approvals of perk tests, but is there
After Thanksgiving.
sufficient amount of time to know that much material before the health department stopped doing their investigation.
Right, and that's a question to Andy, that as far as when can work start, does the water district need to be in place? Does the drainage district need to be in place?
No, if one were to ask me my opinion, I think the planning board, if it were in a position to act on the final plat conditionally, the conditions would include establishment of the water district extension and the drainage district. So that's another condition that would need to be satisfied, just like the health department. So I think when this board is ready to act is when the work would start.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be my opinion.
That's directly related to schedule at that point.
Yeah. Now, having said that, as we know, the process in front of the town board is once the map plan and report for those proposed districts are reviewed and deemed complete, it's really a couple of month process at the town board. Yeah.
Any questions? Do you have anything else to add?
Andy was so thorough, I'd say no.
That's
what I was gonna say, but he covered everything.
Okay.
And we really do appreciate the town working with us in this very unique circumstance.
Certainly is. Now, as far as in front of us with the board,
In my opinion, Ron's got his review letter out there. It's really at this point getting comments addressed and getting the proposed final subdivision plat in front of the board. So we did.
Have we done public hearing on this?
We did. And it was closed and the time frame to act has been extended.
And we would get a SWIP. The SWIP would be,
SWIP has to be done prior to them disturbing the soil.
Yes.
right, so it's partially done, they'll, would it be a
Right,
phase?
it's generally complete, but there's the I's and T's now.
Mhm.
You really can't do until, we get final approval.
Well, we'll know for the record too, that Phil Bradley from the water department is here. Have we missed anything? Do you see anything that we're missing in the?
No, Ron's letter addresses my concerns that are included in there, easements and such.
Okay, thanks.
so when will we expect to move forward? Can we put you on our agenda for our next meeting?
We'll look through schedule and see with the 2-week turnaround. Obviously, we want to come back to the board with almost a sign off from Ron's office.
Okay.
So we'll talk about how much time he needs.
We're gonna get back on just 21st. But we gotta get to actual work on it. Right, and the way he said. Like I said,
I mean, we'll put you on for the 21st.
Plans are received by our office tomorrow.
It's obviously the balls in your court.
Right.
Okay.
No plan on that.
Good, and we should expect to see something on the before the 21st, obviously.
As long as you receive the plans in enough time to provide comments, we will have our comments ready.
Okay, we're gonna put you on for the 21st now.
And Andy, we still would need to look at on any other conditions, correct?
Oh, yes, yeah, we'll have time to sit down and go through. We've only talked about a couple of proposed conditions on a major subdivision. There are a number of them, and Ron and I will sit down and review that and propose conditions for the board.
Okay. All right.
Very good.
Once again, anybody on the board have any other questions? I think we're all set.
Thank you for rearranging.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. We'll probably be here this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go back on track for the Leon site plan amendment. I'm gonna fall asleep back there. Serving refreshments. Okay. Now, we got, they're setting up there. We got a letter dated, June 28th in your office addressing the comments in the public hearing.
Yes.
You want to review that first and then we're going to, I believe, try to do a certain secret determination going through parts 1, 2, and 3.
Well, we did submit the response to the comments that we made at the public hearing. One was with National Grid, which we are, still working with them to work out their concerns about some of the grading. There has been some correspondence that we have provided to the town, going back and forth between our office and National Grid. There was another comment, or a few comments regarding some of the floor layout, and what was it for? The location of the pre-order window, all minor comments that we did address through our letter that we had from June 20. I don't know if you want to go item by item or if there's anything special that you want to.
No, I mean, I don't need to go item by item because you have submitted did everybody get a chance to just, it came in on the 30th, I think we got it about a week ago, didn't we?
Delivered it before the 4th holiday.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Then, one of the things we'd like to do tonight is review the secret determination. Parts 1, 2, and 3. Can we do that relatively easily before the sun comes up?
I can do the Cliff's Note version of the seeker.
Okay.
I took the liberty of completing the full environmental assessment form part 2, which you have before you.
You've changed letterhead so often. It's hard to.
I tried. That was the hardest part of putting this letter together, was putting on the right letterhead and get it formatted correctly.
Okay. So we're going to be reviewing part 2, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, I reviewed the seeker record that was completed for the initial site plan approval. I compared that against the record of the information provided for this amendment. And I have drafted up a part 2 for the board's consideration. And then I copied it double-sided. But I'll go through just the items that I have checked off as yes. The first item on page 1 is the impact on land. They are impacting the land surface, they are making changes, and there has been other changes to the site with the development, so.
I have a question on that. If you go over Hillcrest, there's a very large pile of soil or something.
That's on site now?
Yeah. Well, it's not on the site, it's on the site, I believe.
It's in the back.
It's on the Leon site, yeah, it's past the ponds. that are gonna be back there.
Or the
So
stone
it's
walls
growing
and-
because they're taking out the front entrance and they're bringing the material back there. for
I guess
that
I
right now.
can speak to that.
Yeah.
Also, is that they had to excavate out a lot of unstable material when they did the site compaction for the Aldi store. And a lot of the material got taken to the back of that site. It was sifted through to separate out the dirt as much as they could, that they actually brought back up the hill after they did that. So that pile right now is mostly concrete brick that they had, and that pile will stay there and be shaped up and have a 2-on-1 slope and be seated in the very back. That was part of the plan that was submitted when they did the detention ponds in that second, kind of the second phase of their stormwater plan.
Okay, that has no impact on the pond or anything like that?
No, it's actually on it sits on rock ledge back there, so it's a stable mound.
Okay. All right. Proceed.
So I deem that as having no or small impact in accordance with the seeker workbook. Next item would be impact on surface water. The applicant has updated their SWIP based on the amended changes to the site plan. So they've addressed any potential impacts on surface water. Let's see. The next item would be item number 7 on page 4. Proposed action may result in loss of flora or fauna. There's been plenty of clearing on the site. There have to be minor clearing for this additional parking spaces for the Roma Joe's. We deem that to be a small impact. I did check yes on number 8, impact on ag resources, and that's only because they are still adjacent to an ag district. However, that hasn't been farmland in quite some time, but so we deem that a small impact. Site has been cleared for historic archaeological resources. Next significant, I shouldn't say significant. Next one that we checked yes on was the impact on transportation. The applicant did provide an analysis of the impact of additional traffic from the Aroma Joe's. In the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we asked them to add the existing traffic from Planet Fitness. They did provide that information. Basically, most of the traffic from Planet Fitness is in the AM peak. That's when the other businesses have little or no traffic in the AM peak, except for Aroma Joe's. It was gonna add 20 cars in, 20 cars out in the AM peak, which we considered not to be a significant amount of additional traffic. They are implementing the traffic signal to mitigate any impacts on traffic in and out of the site. Other minor impacts, impact on energy, you have to check yes because they're adding a use which will use energy. It's pretty minimal amount. So I do a very small impact. The impact on noise, number 15 on page 8, impact on noise, odor, and light. There is some temporary impacts on noise with construction, and they are adding some lighting, outdoor lighting, based on the rest of the site. That's a pretty small impact. The rest of the items in the part two, it is zoned for the use that they're proposing in their amendment. It is in line with the rest of the commercial development along Route 7, so even doing that, to have any additional impact with the amendment. That's part two in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions?
I guess not.
Okay, moving on. Part three. So based on the information in the part one and the part two, I again took the liberty to fill out the part three. Everything's out of order in the package that that Wendy put together, but that's okay, we'll get through it.
I believe that was me, Wayne.
Is that you?
Yeah, if it's double-sided, it was probably me. My philosophy is, why kill
That's
trees with
okay.
paper when I can burn them?
The exhibit A is supposed to be with part three, so that would go behind part three.
Yeah, that's how I got it.
In front of part one.
It's exhibit A.
Okay. So I went through part three, which is the evaluation of the magnitude and importance of the project impacts. I determined for the board that this would be an unlisted action, which is consistent with the previous action on the original site plan. The project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore there's no environmental impact statement needed, and accordingly, a negative declaration is issued. Exhibit A is just part of the part three, just describing the project itself, basically what was added through the amendment. The seeker procedural background, which the planning board is the designated lead agency. Other involved agency was zoning board of appeals for a use variance. And then it just lists the reasons supporting that determination, which I've already gone over. Anybody have any question on the part three?
Should we say that the description of the action that the use variance was granted by the zoning board of appeals?
It has not yet, because this board needs to complete its secret determination. The applicant will be on the regular meeting agenda for the zoning board in July.
So we are now at a point where we can make a secret determination. I believe that's why the zoning board is here still. So, do I have a motion for a negative declaration?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Any opposed? You got your name. Now you want, I have to sign this one.
I got one.
I got a clean copy of the entire package.
Oh, I got one as well, so I guess I'll send this one correct. Yeah, it's such a struggle to lay that down like that.
All right, I think that's what we intended to do tonight. I don't think there's anything else unless you have some other.
No, but we could be on the 21st agenda for
When's the zoning board meeting?
the 18th, I believe.
The 18th?
Correct.
And, yes. I guess it is. And, I guess we could probably move forward at that point, I would assume. Hoping.
Subject to action by the zoning board.
Subject to action on zoning. Okay?
All right, thank you.
All right. Sorry about the long delay.
Not a problem.
Where are we? Okay, as I previously stated, Silas chose to, I guess they're gonna have a meeting on some issues. I think we're putting on. So that is basically adjourned with no date at this point. We got an email. Can I be involved in that meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
It says that Silas is off the schedule for tomorrow. He's going to rework the drawings using ductile iron for the supply line.
Yeah, they wanted to propose plastic because of the elevations and potential failure of, or regulator failure to jeopardize the integrity of the pipeline down there, so.
Okay.
I just were committed to using, ductile iron in that development.
Okay, and they requested you.
We'll let you know when they give us a date.
Okay. Pat.
We have a mercy rule.
I was gonna say,
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea this was all David.
Name is Rick Patton. I'm at 401 Connection Lane. And just looking to get a small section of property for my sister.
Okay.
And basically, she wants to kind of get rid of it because originally both properties were my father's. And she got the farmhouse and I got that 250 and I got 244.
Okay.
In between time, while my father was alive, about 30 years ago, we planted some pine trees and put up a nice little retaining wall, which both across on either side of the property. So she would like to basically get all the retaining wall onto my property so I can maintain it along with some of the pines.
Okay.
So that's pretty much.
Now, this is a pretty straightforward lot line adjustment, as far as I can see. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Any questions on the proposed lot line adjustment?
There's no septic systems in there,
No,
no wells.
no wells, no pine trees.
No trees. Can we do a public hearing?
You get funny. All right, I think we can move forward with this. We need a NADAC on this.
Make a negative declaration.
Is that?
Yeah, I'll make a negative declaration.
Okay. And a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now on the approval of the waiver. There are no conditions on this.
Other than with the lot line adjustments, there'll be a merger deed. This will be merged into your existing deed. And once that's completed, you just file a proof of that merger deed with the building.
Okay. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set. Thank you very much. Sorry it took so long to get here.
Rick, do you have a copy of the, I will take it and stamp it and give it back to you. Once the secretary and chairperson stamp those, we'll take those.
No. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Farther down.
Have a nice night. Okay, we skipped by, we got down to the Brunswick Road development,
We go back to that for 1 second.
Sure.
That, Andy had mentioned they'll have 1 year from when you give them, I'll call it preliminary approval to get everything done.
It's to satisfy the conditions. So if the condition is Rensselaer County Health Department approval for septic for all 24 lots, they have a year to get that approval from the health department. In order to get the health department approval, they're gonna have to get that rough grading completed. But if they're able to get that rough grading completed and the health department approves the design for those lots, then they will have satisfied the condition. If they get it done prior to, let's presume for November of this year, they'll clearly be within that time frame. If they have to wait till the spring, it still would be within that time period, but they'll just be delayed a little bit. But yes, it's 180 days to satisfy the conditions, and they can come in and say, this is what we've done thus far. We need an additional time to satisfy the conditions, and you have up to 180-day extension to permit it.
Now, going back, this is quite an old project. Did we set limits on working hours for that project?
That'll be one of the conditions that Ron and I will review and work on. Usually one of your standard conditions are construction hours and days. But that's gonna have to be balanced against the work that's gotta be done.
Yeah, I can see them working around the clock. Trying to get this
Agreed,
done.
and that's something that is to be reviewed and then discussed with the board. Knowing that this approach, knowing the amount of rough grading that's gotta be completed for them to get the health department in there and do the perk tests. What are realistic and approvable limits on hours and days of construction? Yeah. That's anticipated to be one of your conditions.
Right, and then we also talked about possible inspection.
Yeah, we discussed that as well. It would be, all I said was adequate security, but we'll make sure everything's covered. Be a performance bond and an inspection escrow, both for Ron's office, and Bill's got to get out there to make sure they're compliant with stormwater requirements.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about, compaction and lifts, and replacing that fill on the opposite side there. And,
Yep.
I just see it going around here and just concerned with what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Concerned.
They will review that grading plan. Obviously, it's got to be compliant with whatever their grading plan as reviewed and presumably approved.
Right, still has to be a balanced site, right?
Still has to be a balanced site. They're not removing the material from the site.
So the existing site as it stands, they've cut a bunch of trees in the wall. I can sort of see it 40 miles an hour. And all the stumps are still in there, and is there a plan to?
I actually have not been on the site since they dropped the trees and we were there.
They pulled some stumps, it's a mess on final sites.
Have they gone up there and actually started?
They started pulling some stumps, yeah, but I think, the town shut them down, so they pretty much left it the way it is, and it's pretty helter-skelter up there.
I think it was just kind of stabilized so there wasn't runoff, but it's a bit of a mess.
Oh,
yeah.
So you're gonna have the expensive inspections on that site.
I think that's more than most meant for our sake.
And that escrow would need to be established before they start to work.
So what about the easement, there was that one landowner that came in front of us for a project.
That's in the letter there.
Yeah, it's in Ron's review letter.
Does that have to be in place before they start the project excavation as well?
I think that's one of the things we want to consider. That's a big issue with Bill, is making sure that this site works, including extending that water.
Sure, that's the key to that whole project.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so they agree to it. You know, they have a letter that's not in a form that can be filed with the county. So they need to go back to the landowner and get a easement and that can be filed and transferred to the county.
And he made it pretty clear to us that it was not an established easement yet, that owner that was.
And we've relayed that to
It's been.
Mr. Casal.
Reiterated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, also in our packet tonight, we received 2 applications for waiver subdivision. We'll take it by the number on here. The first one we received is Brunini.
On Tamarack Road. Mr. Brunini is purchasing 2 acres of property from the neighbor to his north for a possible home for himself. This is 137 Tamarack Road.
We also I got a handwritten letter from Mr. Hotelling. It gives Paul Bernini permission to handle the paperwork associated with the purchase of land on 137 Tamarack Road. The question I have for Andy, is this now we had some discussions about waivers, and where they were going, and what direction, the criteria that we had. Just fall under that?
One of the things for the board to consider is if the waiver process is used for a proposed building lot for commercial sale, rather than a simple lot line adjustment or something of that nature, that the board may want to have information that's more akin to a minor, topography, proposed grading, a building area, driveway location. And that's for the board's consideration, simply because of what had occurred at the corner of Spring Ave Extension and Sharp. And that was a waiver, and there was information in front of the board, but shortly after the board acted on that waiver, that the entire 2 acres was basically clear cut. So in order to make sure that there's adequate information in front of the board on a proposed commercial or a building lot for commercial sale, it might be appropriate to require some additional information rather than just a survey.
And just so you folks know, that information was available, it was not presented to you.
Which information?
The topographical work on that site and the Rensselaer County septic approval for that site, I do not believe that was ever presented to you in the discussions before the waiver. And that was established prior to you establishing the waiver.
Well, yes, there was some information. I'm not sure that the surveyor that was in front of the board had that information, but the property owner.
Yeah.
Yes, property owner had that.
The property owner had the information.
Okay.
But we don't grant them without Rensselaer County Health Department.
Well, in that case, there was health department approval for septic.
That you should have presented with more information than you had for that particular case.
Now, just on this particular application with the meeting, he owns the house that's currently at one. No, wait a second.
Yeah, he owns the house to the south.
Is he planning on selling that house? or-
He has his son living with him and his wife, and they had a child. So he is looking at either, well, he was looking at putting an addition on, and then this parcel came available next to him when he got speaking with the neighbor, asking him if he could buy some land. And this is what they came up with. And he would like to build a house on that parcel
Okay,
and give the parcel to his son and that he's living in now, or sell it to him, I'm not sure.
so then that's sort of reflects back into the original purpose of the waiver at times. Right?
Well, the neighbor's doing the split.
The neighbor's splitting it off and the neighbor's selling it presumably. And
I think that's a pretty tough part of Tamarack Road.
Yeah.
That there's dips and corners, it's across from the garage, the bus garage.
I don't know.
So you come around and it's, a lot of people are late for work right in there.
Okay. All right, we'll put them on the agenda, we'll discuss it. and-
There's no proposed driveway or any other stuff on there.
Is the Mesmer lot landlocked?
Yes, it is. That's older than you are.
That's pretty old. That guy called me young lady, I was like, yes. Over 50 and young, woo. All right.
Next week on the 7th. This is,
It is a 3-2 waiver over Hickory Court and Ledgewood. Is it Ledgewood or Ledgestone? I get those two confused.
Ledgewood. I completely, this is up. So what does he want to do? He wants to just give him a sliver of land?
Right on the corner, they own all three parcels. And they would like to take all of those three parcels, the Ledgewood parcel, and these two, and make two out of them. Put one line here, have this is one parcel, and that is one parcel. They live, I believe, on that. So they would like to give themselves a little more land and then have another parcel.
But isn't that, if they own both these lots,
Own all three.
well, then isn't this like a lot line adjustment to make it one big lot?
It's three lots.
It's still gonna remain,
1, 2, 3, and they want to turn it into two.
That's the ones with the bank. That's for the street there.
Hickory Court and Ledgewood.
All like on the backside of Hickory is all a hill. Yeah.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you take, I'm gonna talk to, let's say this is 121. If you take 121 and expand it into 122, that's a lot line adjustment there. But then, this is still two lots.
You're erasing this line. There originally were three lots. One,
Well, I understand that, but isn't this another waiver?
It's a waiver application.
Does anybody see what I'm seeing here?
yeah, how do you get rid of a lot?
After 10 o'clock.
how do you get rid of it? How do you make these two one lot? Without having a lot line adjustment? So you made this lot line adjustment here, but then this one has to go either there, or it's gotta go there. Where it goes, or it goes away.
It's a substandard lot, probably.
Yeah, we'll dig into the PDD of,
I still have, is it two waivers?
Maybe.
Okay. It's just one waiver, I guess. We gotta look into that a little bit. Because if they're gonna, if they file a deed, it does away with, they're combining two lots. Is that a lot line adjustment?
Yeah, it is. In fact, you've got 3 tax map parcels now, and at the end of the day, you'll have 2 tax map parcels. So one's gotta be eliminated. And that usually, you're removing a lot line and merging land into a lot, right?
Yeah, but we only have an application to move one.
You may wanna follow up and say you're actually gonna have to do something with the other lot line, right? Then
If you have 3 lots and you're going to take it into 2, you have 1 lot line that's just hanging out there doing nothing, yes. So
You're gonna have another water service hanging out in space there too.
true, you're right, 3 water services in there, yeah.
Lot and sewer service put into each lot. That's something to be aware of. That property owners need to know that.
I think we ought to, we'll bring them in and we'll discuss it. Maybe you'll just wanna do one first and then wait 7 years and do the other.
Well, they had the survey done in 2012, so that's how long they've waited so far before moving on it.
How many houses are there? 2?
1.
What is the name on that? The Large? Laird?
Yeah. The Allard.
The Allard?
That's how I pronounce it.
Oh, there's an A.
D-A-L-L-A-I-R-D.
Okay, so they're on the agenda for our next.
Okay.
meeting. So reviewing our, that's it from any new business, right?
Yes, that's it.
We did also receive in the packet tonight the Parks and Recreation letter for the North Troy Community Solar Atlas. We also got a return on the zoning review action from the Economic Development and Planning Department of Spencer County. They just said local consideration shall. So put those with your. Okay, reviewing our agenda. I would take it Atlas is coming, no.
No.
Atlas is probably gonna be on the week after.
I would say because the closing period of the public comment is until the date of the meeting.
Okay, so we'll tentatively put them on for the.
4th.
Now, for our next meeting, we have Leon. We have
Brunswick Acres.
Brunswick Acres. We have Paulson Development,
Yep.
site plan review. And then we have the 2 waivers that just were here. Bernini and,
DL.
We have fun with that one. Does anybody have anything else? And just as a, I would say that we're probably gonna forego the, review of anything tonight.
We'll just note for the board that the town board is holding its public hearing on the zoning law amendments Monday night at 6. special meeting.
So we'll put that, we'll put the proposed zoning board law amendments
Could you repeat that?
at the end of our next agenda.
Yes, so the town board is holding its public hearing on the local law for the proposed zoning law amendments.
Is that here?
Monday night here, 6 o'clock.
Could you remind me what the town decided on the new cannabis law?
They opted out of on-site consumption, but allows for the dispensary.
And are we gonna try and put that into the regulation?
That's to follow, that the current amendments were being discussed, that was one, and it was decided, let's address these first, get this done, but that's on the agenda. Yeah, because right now the zoning law doesn't deal with them at all.
I have a question. What defines an industrial use? Does it mean the definition of industrial, light industrial? Or does it mean the uses under light industrial?
Well, fair question. So there's a definition in the zoning law on heavy and light industrial. And then there's specific uses in the use table that are allowable in the light industrial and heavy industrial district. I think they have to be read together. The code itself has to be read as a whole and consistently.
And need to review.
You had 3 hours to look that up.
Need to review section 160-46, required screening for non-residential uses. And paragraph C.
What's that about, 160?
160-46.
Yeah.
Paragraph C.
Yes.
And there's a setback requirement, which impacts upon one of the discussions that we had at the beginning of this meeting this evening. We need to get that for
Yeah, that could double the setback from 100 to 200.
Yeah. Or true solar.
But it's already in action, so these laws don't apply. It's already in action, so these laws don't apply.
It's in our existing. zone.
This is in our existing
Yeah,
law.
well,
You got a copy of the draft?
yeah.
I'm not in favor, personally, I'm not in favor of that paragraph whatsoever, so to strike C, everybody's happy. Well, it's easy one.
I got a quick, well, should be a quick question. The question will be quick. So the Supreme Court ruled EPA can't create laws on, so the one they were ruling on was emissions from coal-fired power plants.
Mm-hmm.
So does that go back to everything that EPA came up with? Like 100-foot setbacks on streams and?
It would be, I suppose, limited to the facts of that particular case and that particular regulation.
Okay.
Could it be used as a precedent to argue about other EPA actions? Yes. More litigation likely to follow? You can bet.
Now, I heard a lot of stuff, but, and they don't always catch all of it. It sounded like states can't impose a rules more strict than the federal government?
No, that's generally not right. So the Supreme Court decision in a nutshell was the separation of powers argument, I think, in essence. It's the province of the legislature. Congress needs to enact what the laws are. Certainly, they then delegate to the agencies, the executive branch, doing the detail work, getting the specific regulations put together. How is this law going to be implemented? What the Supreme Court said was, what EPA was doing was not actually putting the details on legislation enacted by Congress. It was itself going beyond that and doing what amounted to legislation. And that's not an executive branch issue, it's a legislative branch issue. So how that impacts other things EPA has done remains to be seen. In general, when we have these federal programs, air, water, in the states, these are called at the federal level delegated programs. So EPA doesn't do a lot of this stuff other than regulating, rulemaking. If they delegate the program, like here in New York, the air program and the water program are delegated, then the state puts the program together. And EPA has to review it under the auspices of the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act. And if EPA approves the state program, then it's DEC that implements these requirements. It's a delegated program. The law is it has to be at least as stringent as the federal requirements. It can be more stringent, but it has to be at least as stringent for EPA to review and approve it as a delegated program under the Clean Water or Clean Air Act. Enough of that.
Okay.
10, 15.
Is everybody done?
Now I can sleep.
All right.
I put you to sleep is what I did.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
We got some things to sign, gentlemen.
So CFC can't open until